Jesus tells a story of the curing and the cleansing of 10 lepers. There are 10 individuals who are hideously diseased, who come to Jesus, and Jesus cleanses and cures all 10 of them. Now, leprosy is a disease we don't see very often in these United States of America. Sometimes our missionaries deal with lepers on the foreign mission field. It is a disease that has almost been eradicated in the developing nations, but if you go to the underdeveloped nations, to the so-called third world countries, sometimes to this day you can still see leprosy. By the way, in this text, leprosy is referring to an entire range of diseases of the skin, maybe not that malady per se called leprosy, but a leper is just so grossly disfigured, as we said before, sometimes as a hollow cavity where a cheek should be. I don't mean to be indelicate, but in order to get the real import of this text this morning, we have to have a movie playing in our head. And we have to see these lepers coming to Jesus, all 10 of them, their nose, the nasal cavity. You could peer right into the nasal cavity of the faces of these lepers. They didn't have their extremities. They had nubs where fingers should be. They had nubs where arms should be. Some of them scooting along on their knees because their skin had been eaten away by this terrible infirmity. And the text says that Jesus cleanses and cures all 10 of them. But there is only one, if you will read this passage very clearly, there's only one of these lepers who is healed, who is made well, who is made whole, who is put back together again. All 10 have their tissues restored. All 10 have their physical and biological organs working properly again. We have dedicated physicians in this congregation who know the difference between a cure and a healing. And a healing is something that has to do with the totality of personhood. All 10 of these individuals are cured, but only one is made well, and that is the one who has experienced the power of gratitude. The story says that one comes back to Jesus. Where are the other 9? Jesus asked rhetorically. Because, my brothers and sisters, it is that gratitude and thanksgiving and profound, unspeakable appreciation for what God has already given us that puts us in right relationship and stance with Almighty God. Hear me on this. God's goodness has been poured out to each and every one of us. You are not the master of your own fate. Nobody in this room earns her own living. There's nobody in this sanctuary that pulls himself up by his own bootstraps. I stand before you today. I have being instead of non-being, not because of myself, but because of entities and resources all around me, because of a loving Lord who made His way to me and made me whole, made me well. And I know people who are fit as a fiddle physically, who are diseased of the heart and soul, because they think it's all about them. And it's all about how smart they are, and how good they are, and how industrious they are. God's goodness in your life is more expansive than you can ever imagine. And the discipline that this season calls us to, and this very day calls us to, in the life of this church, is the discipline of gratitude. And in order to get into that space, we've got to get humble like never before. It's not because of us, it's always in spite of us. And God just keeps on giving and keeps on giving and keeps on giving. And this one individual that came back to give thanks, to cast himself at the feet of the Lord who made him well and made him whole, this one was a Samaritan, not even one of the nation of Israel. He was a foreigner. He was a half-breed. He was of that despised race. He was the one on the outside. He was the one that was alienated from the covenants of promise, to use a Pauline phrase. And it was that one that came back to Jesus. And Jesus said, this is the one, and uses a different term. This is the one who has been made well. This is the one who has been healed. All 10 were cured. All 10 were physically restored. But this is the one who now experiences a totality of God's complete, integrated, full goodness. Gratitude will shape your existence. And the question that we face this morning is, are we that Samaritan? Are we the one who has entered a space and located ourselves in the power of gratitude and come back to God in that posture of humility to recognize the one who has made us well? I don't know if the following scenario unfolded. I wasn't there 2,000 years ago, and I don't know if it happened. And I can't prove that it transpired. But as Grady Nutt used to say in his holy faith imagination, you can't prove the following didn't happen either. Once upon a time, that one whom Jesus made well was traveling upon a Jericho road. And he saw a man beaten and lying for dead in a ditch. And he saw that the preacher of the First Baptist Church had passed the man by. And he saw that the deacon of the First Baptist Church had passed the man by. And he was busy and on his way, but he stopped. And he thought, once upon a time I was in a ditch too. And once upon a time, I was saddled with an awful disease, and everybody rejected me. I was the scorn of the community. Good, upstanding people wouldn't even look at me. I was where that guy is now. I'm going to stop. I'm going to help him. I'm going to give of my resources and my energies to make this man well, to do for this man what that guy from Galilee did for me so long ago. And in my faith imagination, I believe that perhaps this Samaritan that Jesus healed was the famous Good Samaritan of Jesus' parable. I can't prove it. The cup is always half full, is never, never half empty. And friends, let me tell you, may I suggest to you that one of the most powerful witnesses that we can have in our faith today, in this time of recession, in this spirit of scarcity in which every one of us find ourselves, that if we will see the blessings of God far, far outnumber the things that we do not have,